Hello guys, welcome. So if you haven't heard the bad news, TT Isle of Man 2020 has been cancelled due to concerns about coronavirus. But fear not, because in a couple of days, KT Racing and Big Ben are about to release their second lap of TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2. Key features, what's new? So Isle of Man TT2, the physics, the character animations, the free roam area has been added, and there's also obviously the career. There are a few new fully licensed bikes and riders that go with them, some classics too. There are 17 tracks for us to race on, and now a new feature that's been added, you have to manage your tyre wear. It's totally new, and it will obliterate you if you ride on tyres that are wiped out. If you're not careful with your tyres, you are definitely going to know about it. As such, we have pit stops in the game, and that's actually really quite cool. I'll discuss that a bit more later. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, that was a sneeze. In addition to tyre wear, you're also going to have to manage your engine, your brakes, and your suspension. Although I haven't managed to blow my engine up yet, I don't think you can do it. I really don't think you can do it. The game does promote hardcore mode, and basically hardcore mode comes down to this one point. It's just one thing, hardcore mode, unfortunately, at the moment. Any crash at more than 125 miles per hour instantly ends your career. I think it only applies when you're racing in the TT, but that's the hardcore mode. So this game is available on PS4, Xbox One, PC, and later it's going to be on Nintendo Switch, and I've got to be honest with you, I have never been more compelled or engaged with the idea of buying a Nintendo Switch. I would love to have this game on Nintendo Switch. I think it would be amazing. One of their biggest marketing strategies this time round was to highlight just how realistic this game is. A claim that I made of the original was to say that it was good enough to be a study aid, and guess what? Have you perhaps heard of the 23-year-old called Davy Todd? I think he could very well become a TT legend in the future. He prepared for his first ever TT by playing Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 1 on his brother's Xbox or PS4, I don't know which. He was ranked second in the game's worldwide leaderboards, and when he went to the TT for the first time, he was ranked second fastest newcomer of all time in the actual TT race. Thanks to Duke Marketing Limited for granting me permission to make a comparison video. This is a real life comparison video. I have put together a like-for-like real-life comparison with Milky Quail doing the commentary and John McGuinness riding on the bike. So I hope you'll take time to watch it. Just ignore my personal lack of ability, but you can see how well everything maps up. So you'll see my gameplay footage of Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2. You'll see John McGuinness up in the top right-hand corner, and you'll have Milky Quail commentating over the top. And the three of them mapped together so well. And the thing I really want to highlight is that all of the jumps in the game are in exactly the right place at exactly the right time as they are in that video. It's insane. Please go watch that video, give it a big fat thumbs up, share it around. I really want to highlight, obviously I'd like my channel to do well, but what I really want to do is highlight just how bloody realistic this game is, and hopefully that video does that. And I think TT Duke Marketing Limited have watched the video, and I hope that they appreciate the work and time and effort that went into it, and that is why they've allowed me to show you this video. So please go check that out. I've also got a career up on Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2 if you want to go see that. That's over on SimUK Let's Play. I've got the first 2 seasons up and my first ever TT run, and I've got to tell you, 4 laps of the TT is tough, but I really can't wait to get on and do 6. Right. Sorry, very long intro. Let's get started. Quick review then for everybody who is in a rush. Everything is better. It's either exactly the same or it's better. So the graphics are the same, but everything else is better. It's as simple as that. Everything is better. Nothing is quite perfect, but I would recommend this game even if you have the original. You're absolutely going to love it. If you're a fan of TT, you're absolutely going to love it. There are 1 or 2 failings, a couple of bugs, only a handful of bugs, and issues which hold this game back from being absolutely epic. And I'll tell you all about the new features, make some recommendations and some wishlist items for the TT Isle of Man 3, perhaps.
In the crunk of body, look at it. Oh, it's fast. Oh. Go on there, Joe, on the gearbox. Okay, little bump just there on the exit. If you run down now, in towards the 11th milestone.
So,
okay?
let's start with the audio. The in-game audio is above average, it's adequate, it's okay. Pretty much the same as it was in the first game. Wind passing by you when you're doing 200 miles an hour, I think arguably has been improved slightly. It sounds a bit more authentic, there's like a whoop sound as much as just a wind sound. So when you're passing by buildings and they go... Occasionally you will hear the crowd cheering, and at the end of the race there are tannoy announcements and stuff like that. For me, by a long way, the Norton is the best sounding bike, but they're all pretty authentic really. If you go and watch some TT on bike ride footage, the sound that you're hearing from the bikes there is pretty much what you're getting in the game. I mean, ringing the tits off a 600 sounds the same no matter where you are. You can hear the chain tighten and the gears clunking into place as you're going up the gears and down the gears. You've got backfires, you've got skids, you've got engine braking sounds. It's pretty much all there. But where I think the audio in this game lacks a bit is there's no sort of rattle and shake of the bike. I would like to hear like the odd stone click up, a little bit of suspension noise, suspension compression, especially when you're landing a jump. All those little immersive audio feedback sounds, they're just absent, they don't exist. The sound is okay, but it could just be much better. Perhaps it's just lacking something, but it is okay. It's not bad, but it just could be better. Let's talk about physics. The bike physics in this game have been rebuilt from the ground up. This is a comment from them. The gyroscopic effect is now completely integrated for more precise steering. And I've got to say, it does show. It does handle differently from the first one. I didn't dislike the first one. I know a lot of people had difficulties with it, but yeah, I'd say instantly it was better. Speed wobbles have been added and the track has been updated to reflect this. The brakes and shock absorbers have also been redesigned so they respond better to bumps in the road. I think they still need to work on this personally. Slipstream is meant to be a thing. I can't recall whether or not it was in the first version, and to be honest with you, I have had no luck with slipstreaming in this game. I don't know if I'm not close enough, I don't know what's going on, but I cannot seem to slipstream no matter what I do. I think, now this is what I think is the problem, when you start out, the bike you start out on has a maximum speed. I mean, all bikes have a maximum speed, but even when you're slipstreaming, I don't think you can go beyond that maximum speed. That's kind of what it feels like. So it's probably just a bug, but I don't know. Maybe I wasn't close enough. It's difficult to tell. I've got to say, the new physics felt better almost instantly. I'm not sure they're perfect. In fact, I'm pretty sure they're not perfect, but I do think that more people will be able to pick this game up and run with it easier, far easier than was possible in the first title. If you have the game on the easiest settings, for those, you know, youngsters or people not used to games like this, motorcycle games, whatever, then the really basic easy mode just basically glues your bike to the ground. It doesn't feel very realistic, I'll be honest, in that sense, but if you're a first timer, then you're fine. Even in the pro mode, which is the only way I race, the bikes no longer send you in a 90-degree turn into a wall if you're 1 mile an hour over the track's agreed speed limit. It has a far more realistic physics system implemented in that scenario. But there are still some areas on the track that will completely wipe you out for absolutely no good reason at all, and that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. You can be going down a long straight and you just adjust. In fact, you don't even need to adjust. I think it's like there are bumps in the road, and if you hit them, sometimes it just completely wipes you out. It doesn't happen that often to be a massive issue, but if you're about to break your own personal best lap time and it happens, well, you know how you're going to feel about that. And that's the problem with it. It does happen enough to be worthy of mention. It doesn't happen so much that it's a big issue. So the bigger bikes feel more settled. They are better at holding the road, they feel more realistic, they have a bit of weight to them, they grip the road better. And the smaller bikes, which should be more nimble, just seem twitchy and uncontrollable most of the time. At high speed, they're even worse. And due to the pendulum system that they've implemented here, sometimes it can have unexpected and significantly bad repercussions. So the bigger bikes are much better than the smaller bikes. Both types seriously suffer at low speeds, be it a slow speed quick chicane or a tight hairpin like the Governor's Bridge. The bikes just aren't responsive enough. This might have something to do with the pendulum system that I mentioned a minute ago, but I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but the rider's head pretty much stays stationary and the bike kind of swings like a pendulum below it. I don't know. Riding the bike at slow speed is horrific. I absolutely hate it. If you let the bike drop down below 20 miles per hour, then the handling on the bike changes significantly, but you don't get more responsiveness. So it's still as laggy as it was because it's still leaning over like you're going around a corner at 180 miles an hour, but you can't steer. It's just honestly, at slow speed, it's terrible. I think it needs addressing. I mean, I understand lean versus steer, two different things, but it just doesn't work properly. It leans too much when you're trying to steer, and therefore you can't steer quick enough. So you just kind of end up just overshooting or undershooting. It's horrible. It really doesn't work well at all. At the top end, I think the game feels fast. I think it feels really fast, but at the other end of the speedo, it doesn't work very well. Bikes at low speeds on this game, I think, are a massive problem. So the third person perspective in this game actually feels amazing. The majority of people will race in this view. Personally, I prefer to race in first person view. It's what I prefer to do, and 90% of the time is what I would do. Unfortunately, I really haven't taken to the first person view in this game. Again, it's the pendulum feel. It feels like the bike is slipping out from underneath me rather than me leaning over the bike. I'm not enjoying that experience in first person. It's horrible. So I'm sticking with third person for now. I will eventually work my way up to first person, but there's a couple of reasons why I'm running in third person. First of all, track knowledge, and there are some serious track knowledge issues not relating to Snaefell that I will tell you all about in a minute. It just doesn't look or feel quite right. It's worse on the smaller bikes because they're so twitchy. There's no shaking, nothing shakes or rattles, visually, like the brake fluid container that's on the handlebars there. That should be shaking around like a crazy thing, but it's not. There's no movement at all. The helmet doesn't move. The helmet in third person and first person just stays stationary and everything moves underneath it. It's not very nice. It's better. It's not right. I've also got an HS2 Pro, which is a motorcycle controller for the PC. I think it's going to work beautifully on this game, but only in first person. So keep an eye out for a video on that in the next couple of weeks. I'm definitely going to try it. So each of the bikes handle differently. Upgrading and changing parts also makes the bike handle differently. The bigger bikes definitely feel heavier and more grounded, as I mentioned. Therefore, they're more realistic at least in the little bikes. I started to play the game on the big bikes. So the first hour and a half, couple of hours, I was on the big bikes racing Snaefell. And then I started my career and went down to the small bikes. I really, really don't recommend you do it that way round because it totally screws with your braking and your turning. You'll be braking and turning far too early because you're used to the big heavy bikes, and it just, it was an ugly, difficult learning curve going from the big, fast, heavy, the super bikes down to the little 600 cc's. So yeah, I struggled in the career a little bit with that because I just found the bikes were so twitchy. It was horrible. Now the AI is pretty good on the most part. It's okay, it's average. Only twice, and I've been playing for like 40 hours, only twice have the AI taken me out from behind. Prior to that, I didn't actually think they could touch you when they were doing the passing. You can certainly take them out at any time. If you hit them, you can take them out pretty easily, and they will go down easier than you. But if they hit you, you're going down. You can actually hit them and take them out of the race. It works extremely well as a cheating technique because only one of the AI bikes is fast, really fast. Then you'll have 2 semi-fast bikes, then you'll have 3 medium bikes, and then you'll have a couple of really slow bikes. So if you take out the one fast bike, that's it. And there's no rubber banding here. That's one good thing I can say. There's no rubber banding at all. So if you take out the super fast guy on the first corner, then you've just gained yourself a good 10-15 seconds. Well, maybe not that much. 5-10 seconds, something like that. As for intelligence, I don't know. Let's say that they're good at avoiding you, and they are. They actively try not to bang into you. That's really good. But their actual intelligence, the way they race, it's very arcade. This is very arcadey AI opponents from the 80s and 90s. It's not brilliant at all. I have seen the fast, remember each AI rider has a different ability. I have seen the fastest AI guy go round a first gear corner in what seems to be an unattainable speed. I don't know how he went around this corner so fast, but that does happen only with the really fast bikes. The rest of the bikes kind of slow down for corners. I've got to say the braking and everything seems a little bit unrealistic, but you know, they seem to slow down too quickly and accelerate too quickly, but that's part of the arcade aspect of the game. I'll talk more about this in the career. When you set off in a race all at the same time, they will all shoot past you. You'll be on pole position every single time, and at least at the start of the career when your bike is the slowest on the track. When you get your first transmission, it's a slightly different ball game. You've got a bit more speed, but you're going to have to tweak it in order to be first off the line. But still, you're likely to be last out of the stocks. It's annoying as you're always in pole position. There's absolutely no qualifying, there's no practicing, and you will see obvious arcade style grouping whilst you first race. One or two of the bikes are very fast, and then a group of average speed bikes, and then you've got the medium bikes, a few slow, and there's always one super slow guy at the back for beginners to make them feel involved. Now that might sound authentic, but it really isn't. I also have some serious reservations about the career, which I'll discuss in a minute. But on the most part, the AI is set at a certain ability level, and you will have to work your way up through the rankings and positions over time, and the only way you can do that is by getting better at the tracks and upgrading your bike. I actually think this works better than having an overall difficulty level. So you don't start a career and say, I want to play on hard, I want to play on easy. There's just one level, and it's the opponents that are at different levels. So the riders themselves are tiered. So regardless of how good you are, you will rank somewhere within those grouping of AI opponents. And I think that works pretty well, actually. You are definitely going to need to work hard for it, or upgrade your bike. In fact, I think upgrading your bike is pretty much essential, because you know, if you haven't got the top end speed, there's a lot of long straights on Snaefell, for example, and you will get caught. But track knowledge is equally essential. I'd say I'm probably about 60%, and that might not sound like a lot, but 60% is actually, in terms of start to finish length, probably about 75% of the track. The issues I have is where the bumps are, where you can go at a certain speed. There's an awful lot to know about a track, more than just which way the corners go. So yeah, I'm about 60% knowledge, I think. I'll probably crash 4 or 5 times on a lap still, at least. Sometimes more than that. In fact, I think there's a bit of a bug or an issue when you respawn. Sometimes when you respawn, you'll just wheelie. It doesn't matter if you're leaning forward, whether you're controlling the accelerator, you'll just wheelie onto your ass. And I can do this like 4 or 5 times in a row. If you let it respawn and you don't accelerate for a second or two, and then do exactly the same acceleration that you did before, it won't wheelie. So I can only assume that's some sort of bug. I have no other way of explaining it, but you know, try it yourself when you get the game, and maybe you'll understand what I mean by that. So the main track, the Snaefell Mountain Course, is still just as glorious as it was in the first title. I did hear that there have been some tweaks and improvements to the surrounding decor on Snaefell, but to be honest with you, it looked gorgeous before, it looks gorgeous now, and at 200 miles an hour, who the heck is going to notice? Certainly on the track itself, I have noticed some improvements and changes. On the Pro Simulation mode, which is the only way I ride, and definitely how I recommend you ride for maximum fun and maximum realism, all of the jumps are there, and there are a number of bumps and niggles that you'll need to be aware of as well. You'll need to prepare for them and deal with them accordingly too, which is a lot of fun, I've got to say. Sadly, bumps on the track do not fully reflect bumps on the real life track. It isn't laser scanned, which is a bit of a shame actually. I would like to see the bike having to cope with the bouncy parts. You know, there's a good line, there's a bad line, there's a smooth line, there's a bumpy line. I'd like that level of realism. But in reality, the bikes at the moment simply cannot handle bumps at all. I've had bikes wipe out on me so many times for absolutely no good reason whatsoever. I wasn't turning, I wasn't braking, I wasn't doing anything that should justify the bike suddenly flipping out and going on its ass. But they high side all the time, not all the time, but they can high side at any time, just because they go over a certain bit of track. and that's wrong. Because if you watch TT racing, the track is quite bumpy in areas, and although the bikes are shaking and bouncing and rattling around, they're not high-siding and flipping out, and the game at the moment cannot cope with that, which is probably why all of the bumps are not in the game, I would say. I also haven't had a single tank slapper yet, so there's room for improvement there in terms of handling and track bump management in the game. And there are 17 tracks all in all. Now obviously none of the additional tracks compare to Snaefell. Snaefell is the epicenter of this game. But there are actually some good ones included with free roam. They have nice views, long straights and some fun corners. The weather conditions can be set, or they can be fixed to one particular weather condition, or they can be variable. One of the best things in this game is when you're coming up to a corner that you've gone round and you know really well, and a bit of cloud cover comes over and it gets darker than it was before. It is really immersive. It totally changes things. And if you listen to riders of the TT talking, they'll always mention about shadows and light and dark and how different everything feels when a bit of cloud comes over the top. And they've really nailed that in this game. I've got to say, it's absolutely fantastic. It's a bit of a shame there's no variable weather. A bit of rain or something like that, you know, if the track could get wet. Maybe, you know, I'd like to go to full realism where maybe a race event gets cancelled because of the weather, or it gets delayed or something like that. You have to go out on the slightly damp track and it has damp areas and dry areas. It's not that level yet. We're a long way from that. That doesn't exist at the moment. A TT senior race has only been cancelled a couple of times and it's 110 years. So, you know, I think a little bit of rain here and there would be okay, but whatever. So the free roam area is basically a collection of tracks that have been connected together. It serves its purpose and some of the tracks are pretty glorious. Each of the tracks have bumps, jumps and areas that can take you out. They're not all particularly realistic, in fact none of them are particularly realistic, but in order to win you're going to have to learn their quirks and adjust accordingly. That is not as simple as it might seem, sadly, and I'll explain that now. When you're racing a track, there's no practice, there's no qualifying, it's just turn up and race. Now that's a big problem because that makes you reliant on the map, and unfortunately when you're racing on a track, the map just shows you a map of all of the roads, not the track you're racing on. So if you see a crossroads in front of you and you're doing 180 because you think you're going straight on and suddenly realise that actually you're turning, then you're going to, okay, immediately on the brakes, dropping down the gears, trying to get the bike slowed down as quickly as possible. But unfortunately for you, it's not always obvious whether you're turning left or turning right. So you're going to crash. That's it. Because of the way that it's done, you're going to crash. It really ought to. The map, at the very least, should just highlight the track that you're racing on in a different colour so you know where you're going. Simple as that. Or there should be like marker boards showing you which way you're turning. None of this exists. It's a real problem. All of the track cams are poor. They are rubbish. They need a massive overhaul. The track cam positioning in this game is so bad that on many of the cameras, all you'll be looking at is a tree or a hill or something. You can't actually even see the bikes. They are ridiculous. You're closely aligned with the TT Isle of Man. Talk to them about where they put their cameras and just copy it. There's also another thing that's missing from the cameras. There's no helicam, which is ridiculous. That would make a big difference. That would really give you a sense of speed. I would love to see helicam. We're talking about replays here, by the way. I would love to see a replay with a helicam. Another thing, in replay mode, for some reason, it wants to show you the rider's arse all of the time. It's probably the most used camera in the entire game. What that means is that a lot of the time you're looking at the guy's arse whilst you're going down a very long straight. Why would I want that camera view then? Plus it needs to be a fisheye lens, which it isn't. That is the perfect time to have a helicam, and instead you're looking at the guy's arse doing absolutely nothing. The replay cameras on this are shocking. They're so bad. They need to be totally rip it up, start again. Complete overhaul required. There's also, I noticed, a weird shimmer on the arms in the replay. Now I'm not sure if it's a bug. I mean, it clearly is a bug. But is it meant to sort of give the impression that there's wind rippling the the leather or something. I'm not sure what it is. I'm pretty sure it's a bug. And the collision ragdoll effect in replay mode is nothing short of hilarious. It really is funny.
Welcome to the career mode for TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2. To begin, please create your avatar.
So, TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2 now has a career mode, and it's really nice to have one. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to qualify for and win the TT Isle of Man. In your first season, you will be given the choice between 3 bikes. That bike that you select is yours to keep, and you will use it for your very first race, which is a time trial event. Depending on how well you do, you will get offered some contracts, although I heavily suspect that even if you are last in that race, you will still get offered a contract. Each contract offers various targets and rewards with perks and access to a specific bike. That bike will have to be used for all of the Irish Championship races, but you can use your own bike for any of the other races or challenges or whatever. Well, actually, not in challenges, because in challenges sometimes the person who created the challenge gives you a bike to ride, which I actually think is a bit of a shame, but whatever. As you progress, more areas will unlock: the garage, the shop, and the challenges. Challenges are a good way to improve track knowledge and earn a few extra perks, a bit of extra money, and even some bike parts. Unfortunately, in challenges, you don't often race on your own bike. You are given a different bike, which is a bit difficult because you've never ridden it before. But okay, that's how challenges work. That's fine. So, in order to qualify for the TT, you're going to either need to win 6 Island Championship signatures. That is achieved by finishing within 110% of the winner's finishing time. So if he finishes in 3 minutes, you must finish within 6 minutes and 30 seconds. At least I think that's how it is. It isn't particularly well detailed, and I'm not 100% certain that's exactly how it works. But to be honest with you, it seems relatively easy to gain these signatures, so there's really no dramas. The other way you can win is by winning the Junior TT. Now that is no easy feat. With your underperforming bike, unless you can really claim 90% track knowledge or more, but even then, I don't think your bike is going to go fast enough. You're just going to get caught on the straights, and you're definitely not going to win the Junior TT in your first season. Finally, it seems that you can be invited to the TT by simply collecting enough reputation points. Each week you have a few races that you can choose from of varying difficulty. Easier tracks boost your perks, medium tracks boost your cash, and the harder tracks boost your reputation. If you finish on the podium, you get these reputation points. So there are a few avenues for you to work towards, but you are starting a 600cc bike is not likely to aid you in any of your attempts to rule the mountain, at least not at first without significant upgrades. Oddly, when I made it to the TT, I was unable to race in both superbikes and sport bikes. I'm sure that that's a bug, because one of the things about the TT is you can race in multiple events, and I think that should be in the game. It doesn't look like it is. Now, it might be because I bought my superbike on the day that the TT event started. Maybe I had to buy it before then, but even if that is the case, that would be a bug. So I'm hoping this is something they're going to fix. At the moment, there's only 3 events available on the TT, which again is a bit of a shame. But overall, it sounds pretty good, right? Well, the career mode is okay, but it's not great in my opinion. The calendar itself is quite difficult to see which race you actually have highlighted. It simply isn't clear enough. It is easy to qualify for the TT in your first season, but you have to get 6 Irish Championship signatures. And that's easy to do, so long as you don't accidentally click on the wrong race, like I did. So if you click on the wrong one, and you miss out on one of the Irish Championship races, then you're not going to get that signature, and at the end of the season you won't have enough signatures to get in to the TT. That's what happened to me. It's a bit of a problem. I think they need to change the UI in that respect, because a lot of people are going to have little accidents like that. It's also not possible to skip a race, which I think is interesting. I do like how choosing a race event might make you ineligible for another because they overlap. So, for example, one race might last for 2 weeks, and then, another race will not be available because you're already in a race. But It doesn't really work because, like I say, there's no practice, there's no qualifying, there's nothing. It's just turn up, race, go home again. Bit of a shame. In the career, you will get emails. You'll get them from your agent, from your team, and even other TT riders saying, "Hi, you're doing really well. Wish you the best of luck." But it actually feels really shallow. It's really basic and it's very arcadey. I'm a bit concerned about how arcadey the career is. It seems like TT Isle of Man Simulator is actually going down the arcade route. I've got a real problem with the perks. I don't like them at all. You've got perks that can help you level up. You've got perks that reduce your tyre wear. You've got perks that increase your fuel consumption because you can't pick how much fuel you put in your bike. You've got perks that impede your opponent's performance. And I'm pretty sure that if you had something like that in the real Isle of Man TT, that would be called cheating. So I dislike the perks immensely. I think they're disgraceful. There is no place for them in this game. The career, because of its arcadey nature, there's this grind that you're going to have to endure in order to unlock parts and upgrade your own bike, and even your team bike. You see, when you accept a contract in this game, you'll have to complete certain objectives before they give you a decent engine, or decent brakes, or decent transmission, anything else that would make you in any way competitive. So you will start every single time trial and every single race at the front, but with a distinct disadvantage. You'll have slower acceleration, you'll have poor handling, you'll have terrible braking. The only way to catch others and win is to either catch them all the straights or go faster than them in the corners, which is often actually very easy to do. What I mean by that, just to clarify, is in some races you will have the faster bike, and in other races you will not have the faster bike. So on the straights they will catch you, and only on the corners can you make progress. Honestly, this game is not the right place for all this arcade nonsense. They've built a simulator and then they've bolted on this whole arcade gameplay to it. I think it's a stupid choice. I really think it's stupid. And to add insult to injury, and this is my biggest concern I have with this game, is they've also decided to go down the pay to win route, which is not a good idea. There's a DLC pack called Pro Newcomer Pack. Basically, it boosts you, gives you all these perks. So you'll get max points, quicker respawns, that's a perk you can have, greater media exposure, all of these things that make the game easier for you, but as long as you pay for it. Kind of pisses me off that they've done this, to be honest with you, because the track is fantastic, the handling is much better, and then they've done this rubbish. That is a real shame. It really is a shame. You don't have to do it, you can just ignore it, but if you agree with me, you need to talk to them. You need to send them messages. You need to make a video yourself and say, whoa, why is this arcade pay-to-win BS in the TT Isle of Man racing simulator? It's ridiculous. I hate it. But worse than that, my biggest issue with the career is the lack of practice and lack of qualifying for every single race, including the TT itself. So you agree to race. You turn up at the track. You've never seen it before. Quite possibly you're on a bike that you're unfamiliar with, or a bike setup which is completely new and untested, so it behaves in a way that you're not used to. Then you are always going to be first to go, be it on pole position of a mass race or first to go in time trials. So you can't even follow someone and learn the track. Now, to be fair, if it is a mass race, you'll start at the front but you'll be at the back, so you can follow people in that regard. Now, the hardcore review are like, okay, well, just deal with it. What do you expect? Do your best, learn the track, use the map. We can't use the map because the map has all of the roads on it and everything's white, so you don't know which way the track is going. You can use the arrow things at the top, but I turned that off pretty much immediately. But I needed to leave the map on to give me some idea of where I was going. The easiest way to fix this is have a practice lap and a qualifying lap. That way I can practice the track, I can learn the track. Everyone does a qualifying time, depending how quick you are, depends where you start on the track. Then you can do away with this, my bike is slower than everybody else's bike rubbish, and you can just make this a simulator. You can make it more realistic. But that isn't the direction they've chosen, which is a bit of a shame. The career definitely needs some adjusting, but then I think it will be fine. I'm glad to have it rather than not, but it just isn't good as it is. So, by unlocking parts in the shop and purchasing them and adding them to the bike, does not only upgrade your bike and make it lighter, that's basically the premise for every single upgrade, is it makes it lighter. Lighter and possibly faster, or better. So like brakes would be lighter but more effective, that kind of thing. but it also allows you to tweak each individual component. Why you can't do this right from the start, I don't know. Again, it's this arcade limitation thing. It's annoying. You can change the suspension settings when you buy the right parts. You can change the gearing, the engine braking, among other things. This is so important, and at first I was really worried that this didn't exist in the game at all, but thankfully it is here, and it's okay when you get access to it. But why they lock it behind this grind wall? Why isn't it immediately available to me? Why isn't there a whole engine bike setup area that we could work on? Why do you have to unlock it and then buy it? It's just ridiculous. One of the problems with this, though, is that you don't have the option to have presets. So what works for one track probably won't work for another track at all. And as such, you will be constantly tweaking and changing and testing, and no doubt you're going to lose your original settings that worked really well on track 1 because you're trying to find settings for track 3. It's lacking so much. So as you complete challenges or targets for your team or challenges in the game, parts will be given to you. Now, these are often parts which are currently locked, so you can't buy them. You can only win them by completing these challenges. I don't like this approach at all. Worse than that, though, is you get a collection of these parts that are not for your bike, but just a collection of parts for a bike which is relevant to the challenge. But what you can't do is see what parts you have in store. So if I had all of the parts to make the best ZX6R that I could, but I don't remember that I have all those parts, and I buy a Norton V4RR, I'm going to lose out. It's frustrating. The whole garage area needs a lot of work. They've gone down the arcade route wholeheartedly, and it's a real disappointment. I would also like to see a lot more parts for the bikes, even cosmetic parts, because at the moment none of that exists. So within the career, you can track your progress, you can view your schedule, and tweak and adjust your bikes kind of once you've unlocked it and purchased the right parts. You can also unlock what is called custom liveries for the bike, although I have not been able to work out how I can customize them. I'm not even sure you can. Another thing I don't think you can do is create your own leathers, your own outfit. You can't pick helmets, you can't pick leathers. It's a real disappointment. You really cannot make the experience unique to you as a result. This is certainly another area where the career aspect of the game needs to be included in the next release. I think they've ballsed up on the career. I think they've made a mistake. I really do. In Season 1, you have to go with a contract, but in Season 2, you can actually opt to avoid having a contract and race what is called solo. I like this approach much more, and there are pros and cons to doing it this way, but honestly, the freedom is a welcome addition. You're just not going to have a very good bike. I still haven't figured out how to change my custom livery though, even though I am my own team, effectively. It seems like you cannot change the bike livery at all. Sponsorship is really poorly implemented in the game. You'll basically get an email saying, hey, you've done really well, now we're getting interest from sponsors. There are no names, there's no advertising, there's no stickers, there's nothing. It's really poor. You get an email and that's it. And occasionally, just like you get email from other pro riders, you'll get an email from your agent regarding the sponsorship deal that you've signed, that you never actually signed, you never had any involvement in at all, and they'll just give you $4,000 for doing well. And that's it. That's the extent of the sponsorship in this game. So I already mentioned briefly a hardcore mode, and it's nice to see that they at least thought about that, but I think they could have done an awful lot more. Apparently, you can select whether or not to have hardcore mode turned on at the start of your career. I've started 2 careers. I didn't see the option to do that at all. I don't know where it is. I don't know how you turn it on. I believe it only relates to the TT race itself, so not the whole career, but only when you're in the TT race. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case, but that seems to be what the situation is. Either way, I would like to see a lot more done with the hardcore mode. I'd like to see bike damage. When you have a crash, you see bits of bike flying off everywhere. I would like that damage to have to be repaired. I would like those repairs to cost you money and time, so you might miss a race or have to race with a broken bike. You would have to have some way of having money coming in case your bike was so badly broken that you couldn't race. Or maybe in hardcore mode, that just ends your career. Maybe. Or maybe in hardcore mode you have to go to a sponsor and say, hey, look, I'm really good, but my bike's broken. let's do a thing and make it work, that would be great. I'd also quite like to see injuries, like minor injuries, even lucky escapes. So in hardcore mode, if you have a bike accident at 125 miles per hour or more, your career's over. But how many times have we seen people at the TT have significant crashes at 125 miles per hour and walk away seemingly unscathed? It does happen. I think you should have maybe 99 times out of 100 it's end of your career, but occasionally you can get away with it. I think that should be part of the game. It's an area that I hope they investigate for TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 3, which I hope will be coming, because at the moment they've gone down this arcade route and I think it's lazy. I would really like to see this become more of a simulator, because the track is so good and the handling is so much better now. It justifies a simulation approach, but they've kind of gone for the cheap and easy arcade mode, and that is a big disappointment, I've got to say. Whilst we're on the subject of the TT itself is pretty great with the pit stops and whatnot, but there are only 3 events available and there's no practice and no qualifying. There's no weather conditions. It's a massive shame. They didn't really make this more simulated. Instead, they've opted to go down the career and arcade route. Alone, I cannot get them to change the direction of travel, but if we all tell them what we want to see, hopefully they will listen. There is no way to plan or adjust your track strategy within the TT. You can't pick how much fuel you have. You can't select which tyres you have. You can tweak and adjust your suspension and stuff, but that's it. You've even got perks. I mean, perks have no right to be included in the TT career at all. You have a perk that allows you to use more fuel. You can make your opponent slower. The pit stops themselves are pretty cool. I do like them, but there's no real immersion. I mean, pit stops are such a huge part of winning a TT, but there's no immersion around it. You don't hire people, you don't fire people, you don't practice pit stops, there's no training for your crew, you can't have good crew, you can't have people who make mistakes in the crew. It's a bit of a shame. I would also love to be able to take my bike in and park it myself when I'm doing a pit stop, rather than the AI taking over and doing it all for me. To be honest, it's all good to have. I'm just hoping that they deepen the experience in the next release. So what are the key things that I think are missing from TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge 2? Well, you cannot pick your own helmet or leathers. You can't create your own styles. The career just doesn't have any depth at all. It's not simulated whatsoever. It's not very realistic. It's not very involved. The whole mechanics aspect of the career is lacking any kind of meaning at all. There's no damage to your bike, there's no injury to you. I'm a hardcore player. That is what I want to experience. Get rid of the pay to win stuff and ditch the perks. If not, in easy mode, but in hardcore mode, no perks. No perks in hardcore mode. Come on. Absolutely hate it. I would like the track to be improved further, and I mean the actual track itself. I'd like all the bumps that should be on the track. I'd like the bike handling and physics to be improved even further, so that you have tank slappers, that you can go over a series of bumps without the bike suddenly flipping out and ending up in next door's garden. It definitely needs some work. I'd also like to see yellow flags out on the track. If somebody wipes out, there should be yellow flags there. I don't like this respawn in 3 seconds thing. It's okay if you're running in like beginner mode or even hard mode, but in hardcore mode, I would like, if I wipe out on my bike and I smash my bike up, I'd like the damage done to the bike to dictate whether or not I can carry on, or the damage done to me to dictate whether or not I can carry on. If I'm going around a slow corner and I tip it over and I scratch the fairing, then I can pick it up and carry on. If I'm doing 180, clip the curb, turn into a fireball and come out the other side unconscious, I am not carrying on. That's what I'd like to see. I also think the game needs to include a lot more rattle and shake audio, and especially in first person and helmet cams. I think the bars, the brake fluid holder, the helmet, everything needs to shake and rattle a bit more. At the moment, it just feels dead when you're in first person mode. It doesn't give you any feedback at all. It's a bit of a shame. Whilst I'm on the subject, I'd like to see more immersion in terms of the audio, the visuals, the bumps, the manual pit stops. Slow speed handling needs to be fixed because it's absolutely awful as it is. The rider animations have been improved, but I still think they're too blocky. And what I mean by that is they're not smooth. There's like 5 levels of angle available to you. So you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. It should be a smooth transition between them. You ought to have more fidelity there. It just doesn't exist at the moment. and as a result it kind of makes the handling a bit choppy, and it's far more noticeable on the 600cc's because they feel like they have no weight to them at all. The big bikes feel heavy, the 600cc's just feel like a piece of paper. It's a bit of a shame. Now that might sound negative, there are a lot of problems with this game, but the TT, the Snaefell course and the new handling are more than enough for me to give a big fat thumbs up for this game because it is so good. I have had the most amazing experiences racing on this Snaefell course, on this mountain course. I've still got a long way to go to learn the track completely. I think I can get sub 18 minutes. I think if I really push I can get sub 17 minutes. I'm absolutely loving the experience. If you want to practice the TT before going there for real, or you're never going to go there, this is as close as it gets to the real thing. There is nothing that comes closer. I just hope that TT Isle of Man 3 is more of a simulator and less of an arcade game. I don't mind if there's arcade elements, but at the top end, at the hardcore level, that is what I want to see. I want to see full mechanics, injuries, bike damage, an immersive, in-depth career mode where I hire and fire people, pit stop practices. I want to see it all. I want Project Cars 2 for the TT Isle of Man. That's what I'm hoping for. Anyway, I hope this helps you out, guys. This is definitely worth a buy. All of the issues I've mentioned are genuine issues, but overall, unbelievably, the experience on the TT Isle of Man race is just so good. I cannot not recommend this game. It is just wonderful what they've done. And they've basically improved on what they had before, but unfortunately gone down this arcadey route, and I just hope they realise the mistake they've made. I hope I'm right in saying that we don't want an arcade game. Am I right? Tell me in the comments. Do we want an arcade game, or do we want a realistic simulator game? Exactly the same as it is now, but better. That's what we want. That's what I want anyway. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Take care of yourselves. Until next time, happy riding, happy racing, happy days. Bye for now.